I've had people with very deep pockets that have offered to build us new plants and say, let's blow the doors off. We can sell this everywhere. That wasn't my desire. I never wanted to do that. I never wanted to make a lot of ham or a lot of bacon. I just wanted to make outstanding ham and bacon.
Welcome to the Blackberry Podcast, where we share stories, wisdom, and insight from the amazing people we get to meet and collaborate with at Blackberry Farm. Today, I have a new co-host, Cassidee Dabney, who is the executive chef of the barn at Blackberry Farm. She is an acclaimed chef and also one of the funniest people. And this is our first time hosting a podcast together.
Yes, it is.
So who knows where we're going.
We probably should have had some white burgundy.
Yeah. Here's what we're super excited about. One of my favorite people in this entire world, Mr. Allan Benton, who is just probably one of the most recognizable ham.
I'm a ham producer. I'm not sure how recognizable I am, Sarah.
No. And his son, Darrell Benton. Benton's Country Ham has been a part of the Blackberry story and the vernacular for more than 30 years at this point. Telling the Blackberry story is incomplete without Benton's Country Ham. We're so excited to sit down and talk to you today.
Well, we're excited to be here.
So I want to just start from the beginning and share a little bit of your story from you about how you got into this crazy business.
Sarah, I was working as a high school guidance counselor, and the whole time I was working, I was moonlighting, trying to pick up extra money, doing anything, and got my master's degree, went during the summers to get the master's. And as soon as I got it, school started, and about 2 days later, they came through and passed out a copy of the salary schedule. I took one look and knew I'd never make a living doing that. Within 15 minutes, I was in my principal's office, resigning from my position. I said, I hate to do this. I know school just started, but I've got to find something else. And I really thought that I was going to go to law school. Back in those days, I had a fair chance of getting in. Today, they would laugh at me with my credentials if I applied, but I thought about it the next day, what I'd done. I thought, my goodness, it's going to take me a year or so to get admitted to law school. I don't know. What was I thinking? And I started trying to figure out what I could do in the meantime. And the fellow that started this business, his name was Albert Hicks. He was a dairy farmer in Monroe County, and he ran it literally in his backyard, not government inspected, just a tiny little operation. And he had quit. I learned that he had quit that business back in the spring. The wheel started to turn. I thought, well, we always killed our own hogs, made our own hams, bacon, and sausage. And I thought, this is not rocket science. I could do this. And I talked him into leasing me the little building. It was nothing more than a little barn-type structure, so open that birds would get in there like a barn, and I'd have to chase them out. And I ran it in his backyard for 5 years. And I finally thought, if I'm going to do this, I have to do it in a kosher way and get government inspected and really try to hone my skills. And that's how I got into it.
What year was that?
1973.
1973.
Be 52 years.
52 years.
Almost 53. So,
and now there is a new generation.
Absolutely.
Step in. And Darrell, you have sort of a interest. I mean, it's been a part of your family forever, but this is sort of a second career for you.
It is. Sarah, I grew up in the business. We lived just a couple of 100 yards behind the shop up on a hill, if you've been down there.
Mm-hmm.
And from the time I was, 4 or 5 years old, that was my favorite place to spend time. There was always, some regulars, some locals that would sit on that church pew bench there in the lobby, telling lies, fishing stories, that kind of thing. Just a fun place to hang out for a little boy. By the time I was old enough, big enough to reach those tables in there, I started working. I would label ham, label bacon, help him slice ham and bacon. And I worked there my whole life up through school until I got out of school. And by the time I got out of school, I wanted to do anything but cure country ham and bacon. I'd had my fill of it at that point. In those early years, it was a struggling business. Dad was working 7 days a week, long hours, just barely keeping the lights on. And, I wanted to find an easier way of living. Felt called into medicine, so went to medical school. Came back to Knoxville, did an internship and residency, did a fellowship, and then practiced medicine in Knoxville as a radiologist for about 8 years. As early as my residency, I started missing that business. Mm-hmm. The sights, the smells, but most of all, the people. Mm-hmm. I'd already gone through medical school, had all this time invested, all this training, and I thought I was crazy to even think about going back to it. So I kind of continued on that track, but I enjoyed aspects of my career in medicine, but I couldn't shake, the business. I couldn't get it out of my blood. I knew ultimately it's what I was going to be happiest doing. So I hung up my white coat, went from curing people back to curing bacon, and I've had a smile on my face ever since. I didn't get much time with Dad in those early years as a kid. He didn't get to come to many of my school activities, sports events, that kind of thing. So coming back in the business, it's kind of like a second chance at a relationship with him and get some of that time back. And I think we both really enjoyed that and found to be something special.
You're still good with that? It's working out?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Back when I was in high school and college, we would butt heads a little bit. We have a great time together now.
Yeah.
And I knew I was going to like being back in it. I didn't know how much I was going to love it.
So there's some things that haven't changed at all in the business. And then there's things that maybe having another voice has adjusted. What stays the same and what's changing?
Well, I work for him now, Sarah, and he can be very demanding. I wouldn't be happy sitting at home. I'm out there in his way a lot. Still enjoy the business. I probably will work till I'm 90 if I have good health. I have no desire to go home and sit down. But he brought great ideas. He's made several improvements, and in our business, quality is everything. It's the bottom line. And we're constantly trying to strive to maintain quality and, if possible at all, try to improve on quality. And he's been very influential in that. It's his decisions, and he's made some good changes since he's been into the business, and I expect it will do well under his tutorship.
What were some things that you felt like, okay, no matter what, we can't change this?
I mean, the core process, the curing, that kind of thing. Like you said, there's certain things we can tweak. We're always trying to refine and improve the quality. The smokehouse, you've been down there, right? We've got that antique wood stove in there. All that stuff that he's been doing for 52 years. There's nothing that I'm wanting to change about that. I'm more so wanting to just take care of it, preserve it for the next generation. I want smoke to be rolling out of that smokehouse for many years to come. Yeah. So
people have sort of been obsessed with Benton's bacon and Benton country ham for decades now. I remember the very first time I was like in a restaurant in New York. I feel like it was either David Chang or Kraft, and seeing Benton's bacon on the menu and thinking, this is home. What's it doing here in New York? It's such a widely popular product.
Honestly, the country ham is one of the reasons that I took a job at Blackberry Farm.
Really? Tell me.
Okay, so I'm doing my little stage, checking to see if I like it. John Fleer's the chef, and they give me this blind basket of stuff to make dishes out of to see, how good I am in the kitchen.
Mhm.
And I was working in the corner and somebody was on the slicer slicing Benton's ham. And it was like the single most precious thing in the world to the person that was slicing that ham.
Mhm.
Like all the ingredients that John Flair brought into the kitchen were something to be celebrated.
Mhm.
And it's the first time I'd seen country ham one on a slicer, slicing that thin. Normally it's thick and salty as hell. Anyway, so they're slicing it and they give me a piece and I'm just like, what? And it's like one of those, like I can see it, I can like envision that moment right now. Like first time I had ham and just the passion that everybody had for the product and how delicious it was. And it just made me feel like, oh, this is the kind of place I want to be.
Mhm.
This is the kind of ingredient I want to celebrate. And just watching, like you said, this ingredient travel the country, it's been really great.
That might be one of the best compliments we've ever received in our lives. Thank you. Cassidee, I'd never eaten in a fine dining restaurant in my life. John Fleer called and he said he wanted me to bring my wife and come up here and have dinner. He said he had some guests who had requested to meet us. And he said, I want you to have dinner with us to see what we're doing with your product. Well, it was fall of the year. I'd been really busy and I didn't work all day long. And I was starved and rushed home, changed clothes, started up here. And I told Sharon, I said, stop at one of these burger joints. I'm going to get a quick burger to hold me off till I get there. Well, Sharon wouldn't do that. She said, no, I'm not going to. She said, they invited us for dinner. I said, well, Sharon, I'm famished. I can eat whatever whatever they serve. I'm dying. She wouldn't stop. So we got here and we were seated and they served the first course. I had never been served courses in my life at that time. They brought out this huge shrimp wrapped in our prosciutto. And I remember kicking Sharon under the table. I thought that was dinner. I thought, I'm dying. But it was a fabulous experience. It probably put me on the road to being somewhat of a foodie because I had no clue that food could be like that. And that was an amazing experience. I've never looked at a dining experience since that first time I ate here. It was special.
John Flair had a way of making fine dining really approachable and fun because I had always been afraid of fine dining. Like it was always too snooty because I'm also a hill person and I am also from the country. And that was never a thing that we did growing up. We never even went to restaurants. We were a cooler in the back of the car and you make a bologna sandwich at a rest stop or something. So like he made me comfortable in fine dining and he made me understand that it doesn't have to be uppity and those were such great years for me because I was working next to Joseph on the line and we had Matt Gallagher and we had so many fun people that came from that kitchen that came from John. It was really an incredible time.
Mm-hmm.
Cassidee could take horse manure and dirt and make it taste good. It might not be healthy, but she's so talented. She could make it delicious. I promise you.
I just put my spring ham cream egg on.
Ham cream. What's a ham cream?
So you take the ham
Uh-huh.
and you got to soak it in water because it'll get too salty.
Yeah.
And then you soak it in water and then you steep it in cream. And then you let it cool down with the ham in it. And then you strain it off. And then you whisk it by hand and you make ham flavored whipped cream.
My heavens,
You put a dollop of that on a fried egg from the farm with a bunch of stuff from the garden. Mwah.
I believe you.
It's pretty yummy.
Is that the weirdest? Has anybody made like ice cream or something crazy?
Oh yeah, cotton candy ice cream.
We've had all kinds of stuff. I've had our bacon served in creative, imaginative ways all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, you know what my favorite way to use it? When tomatoes are in season here in Tennessee, just an old bacon, lettuce, tomato sandwich, it makes a killer BLT. I love it.
Tell us about how it went from this, really small operation to having hams and products in some of the best restaurants in the world.
When I started out, I was peddling country hams off the back of my pickup truck all over Townsend and Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, and Knoxville, and barely holding it together. At that time, lots of folks were curing these hams in 90 or 100 days. I was selling 12 to 15 month hams in Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge for the same price those people were selling 3 months old ham. Back in those days, I was laying awake at night with a lump in my chest the size of my fist, wondering how I could make payroll or keep it open another week for the biggest part of that time. And John Fleer came, and he had been here for 2 or 3 months. People kept saying, you need to order some stuff from this place down in Madisonville. And he finally placed an order. We brought it up here, and I didn't know what Blackberry Farm was. I literally imagined some kind of a single wide or double wide trailer with a porch on the front, because I thought there can't be anything in West Miller Cove.
Right.
And we delivered it. About a month goes by, and I get a call from John Fleer, and he said, wanted to talk to me about the product that I brought up here. And the first thing I thought was, what's wrong? And he said he just wanted to call and tell us that he thought the product was amazing, and he thanked me for bringing it, which is typical of John Fleer. And another month goes by, and I get another call. This time he said he wanted to talk to me about the product some more. This time I was so confident that something was wrong. I said, well, Chef, now you've had that stuff for a couple of months. And I said, now if it's got mold on it, that's just a natural process. He kind of laughed, and he said, no, there's no problem. He said he'd actually had it in the freezer, and he said he'd played with it. And he said he wanted to develop a lot of items on the menu around our products, and he asked me if it was okay to put our name on the menu. Nobody had ever put our name on a menu, or they're still the only place that ever asked me if it was okay to put the name on the menu. Blackberry
How polite.
Well,
I didn't know you had to ask.
that's the truth. And I had no idea what he was doing, because I had a phone on the wall next to my cash register, and I remember talking to him, and I thought, can I be sued? What does that mean if they put my name on the menu? I had no clue what he was doing for me. But I could never repay the debt of gratitude that I owe Blackberry Farm. The first restaurant that I ever sold to in New York City was Kraft.
Okay, yeah.
And Mr. Colicchio called, and
Mr. Colicchio being Tom Colicchio from
Yes.
Famous Chef, but also on Top Chef.
Yep.
Yeah.
Placed an order. I didn't know who he was. It could have been a hot dog stand for all I knew. And I only had 3 employees, and I bounced all over the building to tell them, guys, I just took an order from some fella in New York. I know he doesn't know what he's buying. He'll probably never buy anything else, but at least we can say we shipped something all the way to New York City. Well, 3 weeks to the day from when I sent that first order, I was selling to 7 restaurants in New York. Word spread very quickly about our products up there. One was this kind of newbie on the scene up there, a fellow by the name of David Chang. And he had been working, of course, for Tom, and had quit his job to open Momofuku, the original. And 3 days after he opened it, he stopped by the restaurant, and they were preparing our product that morning before he went into work. And Damon Wise was the executive chef. He said he stopped like a bird dog on point and said, what is that aroma? And he placed his first order with us from the desk there at Kraft. We sell all these fabulous places across the country that I would have never sold anything to had it not been for Blackberry Farm.
Yeah.
They spread the word for us, just the reputation. If you sell to Blackberry, it must be okay. And we owe a giant debt of gratitude to the Bell family and the whole Blackberry Farm family here. Couldn't repay them if we tried.
I think one thing that, and I'm going to speak just a little on the way I see food a bit, is, just a really simple Blount County country girl, right? And really loved the plainest chicken fingers you could ever imagine. And then when I started working at Blackberry, I got introduced to a lot of new foods. And what I've always loved about sort of the menu at Blackberry is the sort of approachability of ingredients. So country ham was something I was used to having in my own home, right? And then to see it elevated, from, chefs like Cassidee, it makes it a very special way to celebrate Southern food. And I feel like you guys were such a pivotal part of the conversation when people were talking about Southern food.
All the chefs, of course, here at Blackberry Farm, every one of them, incredibly talented, creative, and they made our products even far better than they are. Just their ingenious way of using the product. And they do certainly elevate typical Southern dishes to another level here.
Mm-hmm. But you all have also been like a huge part of the Southern Foodways Alliance conversation. You're a fellow. How does that community help sort of raise all different types of ingredients that are made here in the South?
Southern Foodways Alliance has been a blessing in my life. Met some fabulous folks through it, but they have helped elevate the image of Southern cooking all over America today. If you go to Napa Valley or if you go to Manhattan, you're going to find chefs who are trying to copy what all of us here in the South have been doing for many generations. It's basically a takeoff of what my grandmothers were doing on wood cook stoves back in the day, except people like Cassidee elevate that to a totally different level. And I think it's celebrated all over the country today. Many chefs are trying to emulate what home cooks have been doing here for many generations. And I'm thankful because I think for so long, maybe people on the West Coast or in the Northeast sort of look down their noses on the Southern cook scene, but they finally figured out we probably talk a little slower than they do, but we really know how to eat down here. So,
so what other ingredients besides tomatoes are you passionate about?
On my BLT,
or on anything?
Well, of course, we're huge fans of the Cruise Farm products. My wife has to have it in the fridge. If she gets down to 1/2 gallon of Cruise Farm buttermilk, she instructs me to bring more home that day. She's that passionate about it. But I love fresh okra. There's so many things that Cassidee can address those issues more than I can. I mean, she uses, I bet everything that comes out of that garden here gets a use.
We certainly try.
Can you walk us through the process of like the actual process of making it?
So we get our fresh pork in, hams, bacon. We source it, just like in a high-end kitchen. Your end product can only be as good as what you start with. So we work with farmers that we trust, get fresh, good, high-quality fresh pork. What we're doing is essentially mimicking the seasons that people used to utilize before they had refrigeration. So traditionally, people would process their hogs on or very close to Thanksgiving Day. Nice cold time of the year outside, so the meat wouldn't spoil. Most people had a smokehouse, just a simple, uninsulated log structure. They would put the meat in cure, store it in that smokehouse, and by the time spring rolled around, the temperature started to warm up. It was cured and preserved enough that it could just hang at ambient temperature, and they would eat on it through the spring, summer, until the next fall when they repeated the process. So what we do is just try to mimic that. So we get the fresh pork in. We start it out in a cooler that is kind of like Thanksgiving Day. We have the benefit of modern refrigeration. We rub it down with a mixture of salt, brown sugar, and pepper. It's the same family recipe that our family's been using for generations. The hams will stay stacked up in that cooler for a week or so. They'll get re-rubbed with that mixture and ultimately spend, a couple of months kind of mimicking that winter season.
And is that mixture the cure?
That's the cure.
Okay.
And it's the Benton family recipe. We then move them to another cooler that's a few degrees warmer, so more like a late winter, early spring. They'll hang up in there for another 3 to 5 months. And then we can bring them out closer to ambient temperature, and we rotate them through a series of aging rooms that continue to follow the seasons, just like they would have 200 years ago hanging in a smokehouse.
What's the length of time from when the pork comes in to
Pork goes out?
Country hams, like our typical country ham, again, the kind you kind of fry in a skillet, put on a biscuit, 8 to 12 months on those. And then that prosciutto style ham, around 2 years or maybe even a little longer. Bacon we can cure a lot quicker. matter of weeks as opposed to 8 months for those hams.
So you really have to, when you're contacting those farmers in the Midwest, you have to really be 2 years ahead of what you think is going to be the trend.
You're buying for what you're going to sell 2 years from now.
Yeah.
Did you add bacon in later because it was such a quicker process so that you could get a revenue?
You know, good question. The bacon, I realized that I had a market for bacon in the South. I mean, people like the country bacon. And I also figured out that people in the Northeast might not be familiar with country ham. It's been a regional product. And I had a great friend over in North Carolina. He was twice as smart as I am, just a great guy. When I started making a lot of bacon, he said, "Man, why are you making bacon?" He said, "There's more money to be made on country hams." He said, "Don't fool with the bacon." And I didn't answer him, but I knew in my heart. And when I started smoking bacon, and when I was growing up, we didn't smoke in our old log smokehouse. The first time I smoked bacon, I took it out and I had an old frying pan there at our store. And I had 2 employees at that time, and my father was out there. Well, I fried that bacon up, the smoked bacon, and they all tried it and they looked at me and said, "No, this stuff will never sell." Well, I had to swallow 2 or 3 times, and about an hour later, I told them, I said, "Guys, there may not be a market for this product in Monroe County. There may not even be one in the state of Tennessee. But I said, there's a market for this bacon." I said, "We're on to something." My father, he died in 1995 before I had any degree of success. I wish he could have lived to have seen it because we sell as much bacon now as we do country ham.
Wow.
And we're very fortunate.
I know there's a lot that gets fried up in my house.
Thank goodness.
What's that conversation like with the farmer? Do you just, like, you know them, you trust them, but it's like, this is the kind of pork we're going to buy?
We're fortunate to be able to source what we got. When I first started to buy better pork, trying to look for it, I'd been to New York, sat on a panel, and heard them talking about the acorn fattened pork in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
And the light bulb went off. My grandparents, there in Virginia, where I was born, they would run out of feedstuffs for their pigs in fall of the year. They didn't have any money, so they had to be resourceful. They would turn those hogs loose to forage in the forest for whatever they could find.
Mm-hmm.
They always had far superior pork to anything I could buy. When I came back from that trip in New York, I was bent on finding better pork. Didn't have a computer, doing it with a rotary dial telephone, getting a name and going with it. And finally put together a few sources. Word got out among chefs that I was doing that, and they would start asking me about, "Where are you sourcing this great pork?" And I'd tell them. Well, the first thing I know, I'd call my farmer, looking for hams. "How many you got me?" "Well, we're not going to have any," they'd say. We're selling it all to these restaurants around here right now." So we're a little bit more closed mouth about our sources today than we used to be with the computer. Let them find it on their own.
Yeah.
But most of the pork that I'm finding now is mostly in the Midwest, and they have to agree to raise the breeds that we like on pasture, no antibiotics in the feed.
So, Allan, you say this isn't rocket science, but honestly, there are not a whole bunch of people doing this. So there has to be some sort of magic to this craft because you're a craftsman and no one else can make the product that you guys make. So what are your trade secrets here? Whatever you can share. I know.
When I made the decision to get into the country ham business after I'd quit my job as a guidance counselor, I thought, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it really well. I had never stepped foot on the agriculture campus at the university until I decided to get into the meat business. And Cassidee, within 30 days, I was on a first name basis with virtually every professor in the food tech department over there. I picked their brains constantly. I I wanted to learn the science behind it as well as the way we did it at home. And I kind of used a hybrid process, if you will, decided to cure my hams that way. And the fellow that had started our business, he had a recipe and he used white sugar and salt only. And it was good. But I was drawn to the recipe that my grandparents used. I preferred the brown sugar. And I learned a lot from the fellow that started the business. The very first day that I was out there by myself, he came out with me, and I had a customer come in, and I had made some sausage or something so I'd have something to sell, because I had to cure the hams for many months to get them ready. The fella came in and he bought some stuff, and we didn't even have a cash register. He operated basically out of a cigar box. And I took the fella's money, took the tax off of a paper chart that the state of Tennessee furnished to show how much tax on each sale. I added it up with a pencil, collected his money, and he left. And when he left, I wadded the paper up and threw it in the trash can. And Albert Hicks, the fellow that started the business, he was a tall, slender fellow, always wore a hat, of men of his generation usually did. He shoved that hat back, chomped down on his cigar, and looked at me, and he said, "Boy, turn that over and write on the backside before you throw that away." To this day, I still do that, because I knew he was telling me I had to operate really closely if I was going to make it. And I still cherish some of the advice he gave me in that area. I learned a lot from him, more about life than I did about meat. But we decided on our process, and we're constantly trying to refine it. Took Darrell, we went to Europe last year and visited many operations in Spain and Italy, and wanted to see him. You always learn if you're trying to refine what you do, and we think we've got a process that works well for us. We've served our prosciutto style ham many times next to the imported stuff, and I really like what they do. I'm not saying it's not good; it's really good. But we think we can make some really good prosciutto in this country as well. And as Darrell pointed out, you have to source the best product to start out. We buy a lot of old heritage breeds of pigs, which are raised on pasture with no antibiotics in the feed, to make our prosciutto style ham. And we're constantly trying to refine it to make it better. He's probably more passionate about the quality than I've ever been, and that's a good thing.
So the trip to Spain, what were some of the differences between how you all cure and how the artisans over there were creating prosciutto?
We visited one prosciutto producer, family-run business. They consider themselves small and artisanal, and it is an outstanding artisanal product. Their plant, we would estimate, would probably cost about $500 million to build.
Ooh.
During the curing process, they had an MRI machine on the line that would analyze the ham on a molecular level, determine if more or less salt needed to be adjusted, and adjust it on the fly. So you've been to our shop. We're the opposite end of that
No
spectrum.
MRI there.
Hillbilly operation through and through. Wooden racks as opposed to a very, all stainless steel facility like they have. But we also visited some much smaller places, Culatello producer that, even smaller than us, essentially had this stuff aging in their basement. And there's regional differences even in the flavor, country hams, as they age, they naturally develop mold and yeast along the surface. The strains of those are unique to each location, just like a fingerprint. It's just part of the natural flora that's floating around in that area. What we've got here in East Tennessee, even in that high-end prosciutto plant, the windows open at regular intervals automatically, encouraging the flow of that Italian mountain air and the population of that flora on their hams. And it does impact the taste in very subtle ways. So.
This is our 50th anniversary year at Blackberry, and we have a collaboration, right?
We do. It's in the works, and I'm excited about it.
Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So folks at Blackberry reached out, interested in doing a collaboration on some bacon and country ham. We're going to smoke some of the stuff that we cure using wood sourced from the Blackberry property. We don't know if we're going to use a single wood or a blend of woods. We're going to play around with it, get a flavor profile that everybody's excited about, and then we'll have it packaged up, labeled, letting people know the special origin of this particular product, and it'll be available for Blackberry customers to purchase.
Now, is there like a type of wood that you normally smoke with?
So most of our products we smoke using hickory wood. Hickory's plentiful here in the hills of East Tennessee. It's got a great flavor. So most what people associate with our product is hickory smoke. We do some fun little side projects and experiment a little bit on the side, but hickory's our go-to.
Yeah. Do you have a type of tree that you're going to pick out from here, or you're going to play with it?
We're going to play with it. Yep.
Okay.
Work with the garden manager. They said they've got clippings from all kinds of different trees, and we'll see what works.
Any new exciting things for the future, or are we just going to stay the course?
You know, I enjoy these fun little side projects, so always looking to continue to tweak and refine our process, see if we can continue to improve the quality. Would like to experiment with some different types of charcuterie like we saw over in Italy. You know, it probably wouldn't be a large scale, something be pretty limited, and something we give our customers a little heads up on. So
yeah,
we have always had the philosophy, I never wanted to make a lot of ham or a lot of bacon. I just wanted to make outstanding ham and bacon. And it's hard enough. I think we have about 25 employees. It's hard enough to find 25 local country folks that will buy into helping us make a world-class product. I've had people with very deep pockets that are offered to build us new plants and say, let's blow the doors off. We can sell this everywhere. That wasn't my desire. I never wanted to do that. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I'm even happier that he's happy doing what I'm doing. I never thought about him coming back into the business. I thought he had it made working as a radiologist, but he's obviously very happy doing what he's doing. And as a father, that's all you can ask. If your kids are happy, what else matters?
Right. So thank you so much for being with us today and for the last 50 years being a part of Blackberry's story.
Let me tell you, we probably would not still be in business, literally, if it were not for Blackberry Farm. I know deep in my heart I would have never made it. I was struggling the whole time.
Thank you, Allan. I think the feeling is definitely mutual here at Blackberry. We've been fortunate to have access to your products for so long and to get to share it with so many people that come and travel here, and getting to work with special craftsmen and artisans such as yourself is one of the great joys of Blackberry.
Well, I'm humbled by your comments. Thank you.
Darrell, can you share with everyone like where they can find you, find the product, Instagram, Facebook?
Sure. We're on social media. It's a necessary thing in today's world. In a small business, you've got to wear a lot of hats. I might be scrubbing floors one day and managing social media, that night. But we're on all that stuff. Benton's Bacon on Instagram. We're on Facebook too. Benton's Smoky Mountain Country Hams. I do a little bit of TikTok. I think I maybe have 3 posts. I'm not very good at it. I might be too old for that, Sarah. But we have an e-commerce website. It's bentonscountryham.com. And we always love for people to stop in and see us at our shop. Those early years, I remember being a little boy, sitting on that church pew bench there in the lobby, staring out at Highway 411 for hours at a time, praying just one person would come in and buy a little bacon or something. Often they didn't. We have more people coming through the door now, but we never take it for granted. We're grateful for everybody that takes an interest to visit us, and we're happy to show people around our little hillbilly operation. We'll take you behind the scenes, open up those smokehouse doors, and let people get a little smell that smoke.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.